say his name. Candyman.
Welcome, everybody. You are getting Lost in Plot, the show where we focus on story first, but not exclusively, across the mediums of film, television, video games, really anything with a story. I'm Wade, that's my brother Jake, and today we have for you Candyman. So let's go get Lost in Plot on this one, and hey, big spoilers coming for this one. I'm going to spoil everything about it. Huge spoilers. So let's go ahead and get into it. For as long as residents can remember, the housing projects of Chicago's Cabrini Green neighborhood were terrorized by a word-of-mouth ghost story about a supernatural killer with a hook for a hand, easily summoned by those daring to repeat his name 5 times into a mirror. In present day, a decade after the last of the Cabrini Towers were torn down, visual artist Anthony McCoy and his partner, gallery director Brianna Cartwright, move into a luxury loft condo in Cabrini, now gentrified beyond recognition and inhabited by upwardly mobile millennials. With Anthony's painting career on the brink of stalling, a chance encounter with a Cabrini Green old-timer exposes Anthony to the tragically horrific nature of the true story behind Candyman. Anxious to maintain his status in the Chicago art world, Anthony begins to explore these macabre details in his studio's fresh grist for paintings, unknowingly opening a door to his own complex past that unravels his own sanity and unleashes a terrifying wave of violence that puts him on a collision course with destiny. Ooh, whoa. A failing artist digs up his own social justice angst and finds a vehicle for it in Candyman, the local boogeyman out to kill some rich white gentrifiers. Less a film than a political statement is Candyman. Well, that seems to be the truth of it. We're going to get ourselves some rich, waspy folks and mount them on the wall. Candyman, hopefully, when you come to see this movie, you want to see a horror movie, right? So when you pay your money and you get your ticket, you sit down and you want to see a horror movie, that's basically what you're being sold. Candyman, which is already an established IP. It has several films that have come before it. People are familiar with this IP. So when you pay, that's what you expect. But here, the trick that they seem to be pulling is, we're going to lure you with that horror movie that you want to see, but then we're going to give you a heaping helping of racial politics and social justice. Exactly right. The terror was distinctly missing from this one. I felt like they just left it out completely. I think and I'll get into this when I break the story, but I think what they did is they pulled off a bit of a trick. And I think they started you with the horror movie that you wanted, and by the end of it, they turned it into a kind of revenge type movie or something along those lines. I'll get in more detail as we move along, but
it's a vehicle for their social justice message, is what I think.
There's no doubt about it, and it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that this trend continues, where we take old IPs and re-release them with a shiny new veneer of social justice, and that justifies apparently their existence. It's not a very satisfying movie-going experience when you do that, however.
Well, we've said they a few times. Let's find out who they are with who wrote this.
That's right. Now, say my name.
Talking about who wrote this, of course it's Jordan Peele, but with 2 other credits on there, Win Rosenfeld and director DaCosta.
That's right, and I love Jordan Peele. I think he's super talented. I loved all of his sketches. He's absolutely hysterical.
Key and Peele on Comedy Central, of course. Now, he didn't direct this one. He only wrote it. He wrote and directed his last 2. So let's start with the first one. Actually, we'll go back. I was going to say Get Out, but we need to talk about Keanu before that in 2016.
Well, we don't have to talk about it because neither one of us have seen it.
I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it?
We'll move right past Keanu.
Maybe we'll go back and watch it.
We can talk about his sketches until the cows come home, because I continually watch those on YouTube, and they are riotous. He is unbelievable.
Do you have a favorite?
No, I don't. There's too many. There's too many to recount.
I like the one where they're calling attendance, and they mispronounce all the names. You know which one I'm talking about?
Attendance.
Yeah. In school, he's in a classroom.
Oh, yeah. They're doing attendance in school, yeah.
Good one. Anyway, let's talk about...
Just think of their sketches. It makes me laugh. I love Key and Peele.
First film here, Get Out. What did you think of Get Out?
Now, Get Out, I'll be honest with you. I didn't see the actual film, but I did read the screenplay.
You didn't watch it?
I didn't. I didn't watch the actual film. I just read the screenplay, and that was pretty much it. And I thought it was, I don't know. I mean, the script itself was okay. I didn't think it was any great shakes one way or the other, but I thought it was competent and very solid work. Yeah, I guess that's all I've got to say.
Pretty well directed is what I'll say about that one. I'm not on the hype train for it, though. I didn't really like it. I thought it was a little bit silly and absurd with its messaging, but that's me. Going on then from Us, which you have seen.
I've seen Us. Now, this to me, when I saw this film, I thought, man, this guy is an auteur. He is a substantial talent in the horror genre, which amazed me because the guy's so well established in comedy and sketch routines, but his directing for this film was outstanding. The film itself, I don't like. There's far too many plot holes and logic holes and everything.
Great first act, though, right?
Amazing first act.
Wonderful first act.
Incredible performances, fantastic directing. There's so much great about it. The only thing it's lacking is that really amazing script.
Yeah, and when you get down to the bottom of it, the third act reveal, how often do we say the third act reveal is where it's blown? And it was blown with Us for
yeah. We may say that again for this film.
Okay. So that is it for Jordan Peele. I think we've covered him. He's got a couple with him. Now, DaCosta, this is her main writing credit. I think she has an indie film there too, but she's primarily director. And then Win Rosenfeld is primarily a producer. This is his first writing credit on this one. They all work under Jordan Peele's studio branch, Monkey's Paw, I think it's called, something along those lines. So now we know who wrote it. Let's hand it over to you to break the story.
Can't wait. So Candyman is an unfortunate example of a great horror movie ruined by racial politics. So what is the Candyman? Well, he is a innocent black man with a hook for a hand who is murdered by racist white police in the projects of Cabrini Green in Chicago in, I believe, the 1970s. The idea being that injustice breeds malevolence, and that malevolence will be 10 times worse than the original injustice that spawned it. And so, he returns as a supernatural entity known as the Candyman that will kill anyone who summons him indiscriminately. Or at least, that was the idea. In 2021, the Candyman discriminates.
Yes, he does.
Almost all of Candyman's victims in this film are carefully chosen, and nearly all of them are white. Which is okay, if you ask me. That's fine. If you want to change the rules for Candyman and say that he comes back and he only kills the white folk, fine. No problem by me. Given what happened to him, makes perfect sense. Yeah. The problem is when we're invited to sympathize with the Candyman and he becomes less of a supernatural, malevolent entity and more of an avenging angel of racial justice. That's where it stops being a horror movie and becomes something else entirely. Now, let me draw a comparison to another film, The Crow. The Crow is a movie about a guy who gets murdered by a vicious gang, and his girlfriend is raped and murdered at the same time. Then he comes back from the dead with supernatural powers to make the wrong things right again. Now, we're all solidly behind The Crow because he takes out his rage and fury only on that vicious gang and the bad guys who wronged him. But what if The Crow came back and killed indiscriminately anybody he came into contact with? Well, then you have a different movie. Then you have a horror movie, and the sympathies no longer lie with The Crow, but with the people who have to stop him. This Candyman film pulls the reverse trick. It introduces you to the horror who kills indiscriminately, but by the end of the film, we're solidly behind the Candyman as he murders the racist white cops. Now, the problem with that is that he also murders supposed innocents, people whose only crime appears to be the fact that they're white and possibly racially insensitive, which in 2021 apparently is a capital offense. Now, this is where the film veers off horror and becomes something more akin to blaxploitation or some kind of revenge film, neither of which particularly work because they're actually kind of gross. This film, honestly, in my opinion, could have been a classic horror movie that reinvigorated this IP and this franchise and stood the test of time. Instead, they sold it out for this stupid race-hustling bullshit that leaves us with a forgettable entry that ultimately will not stand any test of time.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I really wanted to get on board and like this. I thought it was a cool concept, a cool setting that I hadn't seen before. Everything about it was fresh and intriguing, and I had my hopes high, but I could never get on board as I sat there and watched it. I just could never get on board.
It's just so goddamn silly. And you know what? The directing. I was disappointed that it wasn't Jordan Peele directing this. My disappointment vanished. I thought Nia DaCosta did an amazing job directing it. I thought the performances were excellent. I thought the script was excellent. I thought all these elements are here. The talent is immense. There's great sequences, great scenes that are set up. It's just this nonsense. Why can't we go back to the age of innocence? When we make movies for the joy of making movies, to entertain, to enthrall, to terrify people. Why do we have to set them up with a horror movie and say, we know you want to see this horror movie, but we're going to get you in the seat and then we're going to tell you that you need to do better. You need to be better. F off. Please. Let's make movies to entertain people, to inform them, to enthrall them. What happened to that? Why can't we go back to
You've
that?
hit it, and the problem here is storytelling. And if you look at Jordan Peele's other films too, there's been a consistent problem with storytelling when this underlying message just bubbles up and gets in the way.
This makes me so sad because it's become part of his brand. Yeah. And I love Jordan Peele. I think he's a tremendous, unbelievable talent. I really think he's an auteur, and he could ascend to heights unimaginable if he just put his mind to work. But instead, it's there's this crap that just infects his work that is really bothersome. And you know what? If you want to make a social justice movie, fine. Make a social justice movie and pitch it that way. And we'll all decide if we want to go see it.
Exactly.
Don't pull the social justice rope-a-dope where it's like, well, we know you like this, and then we're going to sucker you in and whooah! Now we're going to give you our politics. You didn't expect you'd get that, did ya? Well, no, we didn't, and we're a little bit upset.
I wanted Candyman! Candyman!
The child wanted Candyman.
Candyman!
You didn't give it to him.
No, and you're exactly right, because even in the original Candyman, which it was in like 91 or 92, it was based on a short story by Clive Barker. I did a little reading on this. And it had...
Wait a minute. I think Clive Barker might be a white person.
He was...
Unfortunate. Unfortunate, gang. We'll push forward.
Anyway. And it always had a few elements of the social justice, because it was about this reporter that was going into the Cabrini Green area to kind of talk to these people, and Candyman was always representative of these hardships. It's how they dealt with these hardships that were happening to them on a daily basis, living in such a horrible area and having to deal with those burdens. You know, they'd say, well, it must have been the Candyman, it must have been the Candyman. It was kind of this thing that was carried on through generations. And that's prevalent here. Now, what they're doing is, they love this word. They love this word. Say it with me. Gentrification.
Yeah, they say that word a lot.
Gentrification.
Gentrification.
Because the idea is that they've stripped down the towers in Cabrini Green, right? And they've whitewashed it, right? They've covered it over with these high-end luxury condos
right.
for the upwardly mobile millennials to move right in and live. But beneath that surface, Candyman is still there, and he's coming back to punish them. Because... guess what? Beneath those surfaces, there's still that racial tension. There's still those old wounds that never heal, apparently. And that's what Candyman is, and that's what he comes back to do here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And like I said, the idea of the Candyman is injustice breeds malevolence, and that malevolence is 10 times worse than the injustice that spawned it. And that's great, and that's a problem that everybody has to deal with, and that's fantastic, because we're all in the same boat, and we want to break the cycle. But... this film chose to take that a different direction. It absolutely didn't have to do it. It didn't. It could have given you an amazing movie. It chose not to do it. They f***ed it up because they couldn't get out of their own way, and they were too enamored with their own virtue and all this nonsense that, you know, it's a great disappointment for me.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Is there any accountability in this film for the characters, for Anthony McCoy? You notice that he kind of sets this thing in motion, but he never seems to feel... bad about the people dying, does he?
No, he's too enamored with the idea
right.
of the Candyman, which I thought was good because it's like, oh, he's being sucked into the allure, to the madness of this urban myth. It's consuming him, and it does consume him. But then at the end, they make him like this sympathetic figure.
Well, because it was something predestined. He's kind of the victim in all this, and it was by no fault of his own, but where he was raised or how he was raised, growing up in that area, that this was always in his DNA to come out in the end.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bleak, cynical comment as well there, that commentary.
It is bleak and cynical. And on that note, let's get to Dead or Alive.
Now we're back, and it's Dead or Alive time. I'm going to hand it to you to do the honors first.
All right, I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to give you the score first and then tell you my ruling. Candyman, for me, gets a 6 out of 10. And it's also dead. Because that's exactly what it deserves, because that's exactly what it did to me. It gave me a good movie, and then it crapped on it. So I'm giving you a decent score, then I'm crapping on it. And that's unfortunate, because I think the writer, the director, the actors, there's so much talent on display. There's incredible sequences, like the one in the elevator when he looks up and he sees the Candyman's reflection. The guy who plays the Candyman in the Projects of Cabrini Green is so creepy and so good.
That's the movie I wanted.
You had all the pieces. You could have made a classic horror movie that we'd be talking about nigh on decades into the future, and you didn't do it. For what? For what?
For what?
For bullshit. What's your score?
My score is a 4 out of 10, and it is also dead. But I'm not going to mix signals like you are here. I don't think you understand how this works.
Well, maybe not. I really like Jordan Peele. No, I understand how this works.
Give
they
Jordan
don't understand
Peele a
how it
higher
works.
No, all right, fine. Listen, I wanted that movie that you were talking about, how creepy he was in Cabrini Green.
You have it for
especially
most of the
that
film.
old
You
one.
have it.
Yeah. You have it for a while, but like I said, I could never get on board with it because I couldn't really, find that character to cling on to and say, well, where is this going? But then that all changed in the third act, and before I get into this, let me just say I thought DaCosta did a good job.
Yeah,
I thought this was well
extremely
directed.
good.
I thought this was well shot, and some of it was well written. The dialogue in parts was well written, but overall, I would not say it's a well written script.
I would,
because
Jordan.
We get to the third act, and that's really when they turn over the cards, and then you see what it is. When she was put into the car, I knew exactly what was going to happen. They drew it out, but I'm just like, she's going to look in the rearview mirror, she's going to say his name 5 times, and he's going to come and kill all these white police officers. And then it's less of a film at that point, and you realize what this whole exercise has been. It's been this message to beat you over the head, and now we're going to celebrate with some gratuitous violence.
Be better. Hey,
Killing white Chicago cops.
You be better. You do better.
What did I do?
I don't know. What did some of these people do?
Yeah. All the victims are white, except for the guy's, the laundromat's sister.
Now let's delve into this, because this was the really interesting thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you got this kid who's somewhat complicit in the terrible tragedy of the Candyman's death, because he outs the
Wasn't
Candy.
his fault.
No,
Just trying to wash his clothes.
but he gives him away because he screams. It's a great sequence when he creeps out of the wall.
I'd scream
so
too.
Creepy. He screams.
his
He alerts
fault
the
for
police.
that.
The police come in, and instead of arresting him, they beat him to death, because I guess you can set your watch to that. And then his sister's playing what she calls an adult game.
Yeah.
And she says Candyman, and she summons him, and he murders her. All right, and she's not white. She's the only victim in the film that I think is not white. And I don't understand why the brother, he just saw his sister murdered by the Candyman, and yes, he's got this morbid fascination where he wants to rekindle the cycle of violence that is the Candyman. And he goes back into the lore
He
and
says it needs to be.
Yeah, he says it needs to come back, and he wants to perpetuate the cycle, and he becomes kind of a third act villain, where he's facilitating the transformation of Anthony McCoy into the next Candyman, which was just bizarre. I don't understand why you had
Yeah, I
had
didn't
to
get
do
that either. It didn't make sense.
So that's a strange thing right there. Why he's perpetuating the cycle of injustice and malevolence.
Because he doesn't want it to be forgotten. That I think he needs, the people need to realize that.
But he killed his
Well,
sister.
And that's the
Doesn't
message.
that matter? Doesn't that
That's their
resonate
message
more
as
than
well,
anything?
though, is that, we talk about the original Candyman. This was from the original film, too. This actually builds off the original film. The original one was a very great artist, was painting a wealthy woman. They fell in love. They had a baby together, and then her father tracked him down and did all those horrible
Back
things.
in the
covered
1800s.
Yeah,
or so.
covered him with bees. And what the film says is, these kinds of horrible atrocities are still happening today.
To the point that you can set your watch by it.
Yeah.
Did you buy the scene where Anthony McCoy is lying in his girlfriend's arms, all right? He's transforming in some hideous way, and the guy sawed his hand off. You remember
right.
that?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
sawed his hand off. So he's literally had his hand sawed off. He's laying there lifelessly in his girlfriend's arms. But the police come in, and he's laying there completely lifeless, and they shoot him anyways. Did you buy that for a second? I understand. I really do, that there are bad racist white police officers that have, in the past, killed unarmed black men for no good reason, and it's a horrible crime, and it absolutely should be condemned and all that stuff. But this, come on. To just assume, well, yeah, of course cops do that because they do that. That's their nature. Really? Is that what we have to accept as the premise?
That's what we're saying.
That's the premise we have to accept in order for this to work?
The thought that I had coming out of this and through watching most of it was, this is, how was I going to put it? Fruit from a bad tree.
Yeah.
If at the central core
Fruit
of
from
this,
the poisonous tree.
Yeah, this is like fruit from a bad tree is what this was, because there's an idea at the center of this and a message that they want to get across that either you agree with it, either you feel strongly in favor of it, or you think it's totally ridiculous and wrong. And but clearly they are on one side, and the rest of it is just you're only going to get one kind of fruit coming from that tree. And that's kind of the feeling that I had as I was watching it, wanting it to be better, because it showed so much promise and potential as what could have been
many
great,
talented people,
great horror
work on
film.
this. And I liked their approach. I really liked their approach to reinventing it. I thought it was clever
but like you said, in the third act, they show their cards, and it's more about a message and a statement rather than it is a film and a story. If you're looking for that, there you go. It's right there for you. If you want more of a classic kind of horror story, something like that, then maybe you're not going to get it here. You'll feel a little bit disappointed like we did. But that's what we have for Candyman in 2021.
There you go, guys. If you like this video, please leave us a thumbs. If you loved it, consider a subscription. Leave your comments down below. Let us know if we got anything wrong. Look for us on Twitter, and we're going to catch you all on the next one.